So we'll call this meeting to order for the MPO Policy Committee on June 12th at 1:30 p.m. First item is approval of the agenda. Need a motion for that.
Move.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Patrick, do you want to take roll call? Or Ryan?
Ryan. Do you have a list in front of you, Ryan?
I think we should just
Just
do it how
call
we've
out our
normally
names.
been doing it, by any objections
Oh.
or abstentions first, and then we can do roll
Yes,
call
yes.
that way.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Kent votes yes.
Any
Any
objection?
objection?
No objections.
Thank you.
And then Ryan would call the roll? Or we're not doing the roll? We didn't do the roll last time, did we?
Yeah, if there's no objections
No.
nor abstentions, that is
No.
essentially everybody saying yes by roll call.
Okay, sorry for the confusion. Some of the Zoom meetings seem to do different procedures, so.
That's understandable.
Okay, so the next
Okay,
item
Kate.
is, huh?
I was going to say Kate Wilkes joined us and Sarah have joined us also, and Jason is on.
Okay, great.
And Chris
Approval
Wallman.
of the minutes for May 8th, 2020. We would need a motion for that.
Move to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any objection to this motion? Hearing
No.
none, passes unanimously. Communications from the chair. I really don't have anything. Glad to see everybody. Hopefully we'll be able to do this in person soon. Reports from officers and or committees. Citizens Advisory Committee.
The CAC met virtually, and we moved and agreed to the TIP amendments, which we will be visiting today, and that's about it.
Thank you, Sarah. Technical Advisory Committee.
The Technical Advisory Committee also met virtually, and they too recommended approval of both TIP amendments to the Policy Committee. That's it.
Thank you. Reports from the MPO staff is next on the agenda. Item A is the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan Survey.
Sure, I'll go over that briefly. I am assuming every one of you is familiar with the survey already. If not, you've taken it yourself and or you've passed it along to all of your constituents and other groups, fellow staff members. We've had a really great response so far. And we really appreciate that. And we're also really excited to get some more responses as well. So the wider you can spread this survey, the better for our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And that would benefit all of us. And us at the MPO would definitely thank you for doing that.
I would like to make one comment about the survey. I took it myself, and I found I had some problems with it. It was when I would like select strongly agree or strongly disagree, and then I'd try and scroll down, all of a sudden it would switch to something else. So I had to keep going back to correct it.
Really, that's
I
bizarre.
don't know what kind of flaw that is, but I just couldn't help but wonder that, you know, we might get some flawed numbers because of that.
Interesting. That's definitely the first that I've heard of that.
I'm
we've already
not a
got
very good technical person, so, you know, but I suspect there are others like me out there.
I did the survey and it worked fine for me. I know we put it on the county website, and I believe the county council announced it the other night to the public too. So we're trying to get the word out for you, Ryan.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, Ken, I'll try to, do any sort of technical assistance that I can. but so far we've had a lot of really positive responses. I mean, we've had a few hundred people take it already. And I haven't heard anything about any technical issues, but
Well, that's
I'll
good
be
to
aware of
hear,
that.
Ryan. The thing that came up with me was when I was trying to use the arrow key to move down to the next question. That's when things started to jump back and forth and change numbers. But maybe that was just me.
I wonder if using the arrow key would actually switch your response versus scrolling down with your mouse or trackpad or something in a Google survey. I don't know.
That's what I'm wondering too, Matt.
Yeah. Also, I was wondering, Ryan, if you could just maybe for the benefit of the public watching and all of us as well, remind us when the survey ends. And then also, I know the link is on the screen, but if you just wanted to mention how folks could navigate to that, if they can't, if they're watching on Facebook Live, for instance, or Cats and can't click on that link, like how can they navigate to the survey or find it?
Sure. Thanks for that. First of all, there's plenty of time to take the survey as it closes on July 6th. And you do not have to take the survey online, as there is a paper version of the survey at the front desk of City Hall. If anyone else would like paper versions of the survey, I'd be more than happy to deliver you versions of the paper survey, so you could pass them out to others. We would just ask that they be either sent back to the MPO at City Hall or dropped off at City Hall, as we have an envelope that we're keeping all of the responses in, just because some of the questions are more sensitive, and we wouldn't want just anybody to be collecting the surveys. We would like to collect them ourselves, so we're the only ones seeing them. For the online version of the survey, you can see the link here in your packet, and that would take you to this page here. And then, as you have done before, it'll help take you through the survey.
So Ryan, it's also on the MPO's webpage. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it is on the MPO's webpage on the Metropolitan Transportation Plan website at this, please access this public survey link here. And then to access this page directly, you would just go to bloomington.in.gov/MPO/Metropolitan-Transportation-Plan.
And also the chamber sent the link out to the survey. They sent that out to all their members yesterday. So anybody who's a chamber member would be able to get that link as well, or just put in a Google search Bloomington MPO, and that the page will come up and you'll see where to click for the survey.
Yes, I've been in contact with Aaron Predmore and Mary Morgan, and they've been very helpful in sending the survey out, and we appreciate their help for sure.
Yes, we do.
Ryan?
Yes.
A couple folks on Plan Commission inquired about whether transportation and planning would be able to mail people the survey if they called the office and requested that. Would you be able to mail that directly to people?
That's a good question. I have not thought about that yet.
Sure. Sure.
I would assume that
we
would
do
be
that.
able to do that.
Yeah.
I hate to make more work for you, but I do want to be responsive to requests from.
Well, no, absolutely.
No.
We definitely value everyone's responses, and they may be a demographic that we would love to hit as well. So, it's a very good question, and we'll do the best that we can to get the surveys out to everyone who would request them.
Okay.
Where should they call, Ryan?
Well, they can call me directly or just call the Planning and Transportation Department, and they will forward the call directly to me.
Or they can send you an email too.
And they can send me an email as well, for sure.
Could you?
And I agree. I think that's very important, especially now that there's so many people who used to rely on going to the library to access the internet, and they can't go anymore.
I know that's really unfortunate for us right now.
So this is, I think, very important.
Yes.
Could you maybe announce an email address so that people could hear exactly where to send a request?
Sure. Yeah, you can send that to mpo@bloomington.in.gov.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments for the survey? Amen. On to the next item is the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 Unified Planning Work Program final document.
Thank you. After adopting the document last month by the Policy Committee, we submitted the document to the Indiana Department of Transportation for approval. They approved it within 1 day. We received signatures from the Planning Department immediately thereafter. The plan has been actually fully approved even by Federal Highway Administration too, for that matter, and FTA. The only thing we're waiting for now are the contracts, the contract, and the contract has signatures, appropriate signatures, except it's going through the Attorney General's office right now, and also the Department of Administration, and that's the hang up. We still anticipate, we're hopeful, we anticipate that we will receive notice to proceed by June 30th, so that way we can continue July 1st uninterrupted.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none. Moving on to old business, the draft 2045 MTP chapters and appendices for Policy Committee, TAP Committee, and Citizens Advisory Committee, public review and discussion, specifically Chapter 2, guiding principles and extended discussion.
Well, backing up just from a 40,000-foot view, Matt exchanged a lengthy email with us yesterday and today about the MTP organization on that page, on that web page. The way the chapters were presented on the page was in a chronological order of how they were presented to the committee so far this year, which actually doesn't make any sense. So Matt recommended that we reorder those into what I would call a normal numerical order. In other words, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down to all of the appendices. So we will make that change. And also there was one typo on the page too. We've corrected that too. Matt, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, not at all. I just, looking at the MTP page, I thought it might be a little clearer on how it mapped onto the 2040 plan if we had it, by chapter and appendix in letter and number order. But I also understand. So anyway, I appreciate your attentiveness to that. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. We will make that correction, make the adjustments, and we'll do that first thing next week. And then we will have additional chapters out, hopefully, by the end of next week, and start filling in the missing blanks. We've got a methodology chapter, which is how we engage the public and how we develop the plan itself. We have an executive summary, which is always fluid because that's the last chapter actually written. And then we have a chapter on projects. Lisa, I'll be contacting you and Paul on projects. And then I'll be contacting City of Bloomington Engineering Department also on projects. because we need to identify projects that are envisioned for implementation within the next 20 to 25 years. The fiscal forecast part has, well, it's somewhat blown up in the sense that the projections that we had originally in January, February, March have differed significantly because of the drop in VMT and the drop in revenues subsequent to the lockdown and to the COVID activity. But nonetheless, we'll still address those. Now, going to, I'm sorry, what are you scrolling on? Okay, yeah. Now going on to chapter 2, can you go to chapter 2, Sarah? Ryan? Going to chapter 2, which is the guiding principles.
Yeah,
we wanted to, no, I mean, can you go back? Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. Chapter 2, guiding principles. We wanted to elicit from all of the policy committee their thoughts on wording, the current wording in terms of the vision statement, all of the goals that we have in the individual elements under each goal. These are taken directly from the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The only thing that we did different was we placed 2040, yeah. The only thing we did differently was that we placed safety as the #1 item in the guiding principles. Everything else is really the same. Now, we could have led you in terms of suggesting areas where there are holes in the guiding principles, but we wanted to let you as policymakers determine those evaluations and then make the recommendations to the staff first. Instead of us making policy, we wanted you to make the policy first. Does that make sense?
Hi, Pat.
So that's,
this is Terry.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm and just piggybacking on what you just said. You know, I've mentioned before that I think that you and Ryan have done a wonderful job on the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. But, our world changed not just with COVID. We have a heightened awareness and responsibility to be looking at our communities and ourselves and in a new way. And when I look at the guiding principles, man, I don't really know what this looks like, but I would like to recommend that we review the guiding principles through the lenses of equity and social justice. This includes racism and also other marginalized groups that have been denied full access to the community. It's not clear enough in my mind that this principle runs as a baseline under everything we do, or at least it should. I think we need stronger language here that states our commitment to marginalized populations and also a better connection with public health as we strive for better connectivity in our community and throughout the region. We hear time and time again how public health outcomes are tied to the connectivity, tied to transportation. And, it feels like we know this, but we don't really. Maybe we don't really. And again, I don't know exactly what this looks like, and I'm hopeful for additional input. But I really think that we need to put these different lenses of equity and social justice on as we review our guiding principles and the entire document and the direction that we're going. Thank you.
Yeah, Terry, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And that is another reason why it's so imperative that the MTP public survey is taken. We're getting a flood of responses to exactly that, which is amazing. So that will definitely be a component of our guiding principles on moving forward. And it'll be a major addition to what we have now, because that is a big thing that our current plan is lacking.
I appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll jump in too, if that's okay. Yeah. No, I just wanted to second Terry's thoughts and appreciate her bringing them up. I think accessibility for any, marginalized or disadvantaged group in our community, certainly looking at racial justice and class issues, but also, anyone with mobility limitations, and just thinking very broadly about mobility justice is important. And I think that can be, I think the guiding principles as stated are big enough to include all that. They kind of get at those things. We talk about accessibility and safety, but I think we certainly could be more explicit and probably should be. And I'll be thinking about that and thinking about how to frame language like that. But I guess wondering more specifically, what should we be thinking of as the policy committee members in terms of logistically how to do this? Like, what are next steps? Should we wait for the survey responses to come in to some extent, or should we be doing this kind of in tandem? And should we be shopping language, with the committee as a whole in some way, or sending it to you and Pat, and then maybe, we'll bring amendments to the guiding principle chapter at some point, I would imagine. But yeah, what does that look like on your end to receive input and have a dialogue around this?
Well,
all of the above.
I would say all of the above. But sorry, Pat, you were going to say something?
No, Terry and I had this conversation, or chat, I should say, earlier today. And as I said, nothing is final until it's final. So everything is fluid. I mean, we can add, delete, expand, be more explicit. We can do anything up until, final approval in October. So I mean, the survey results are going to tell us something. They're going to guide you as policy members on what is the population thinking of the samples that we have here. But yeah, there's so much missing there in terms, I mean, this is personal feeling, there's so much missing there in terms of equity, justice, health and equity, and marginalized population justice. Yes. I'm sorry,
do you
Matt,
think it would be helpful to have a committee?
I think it would, because you could really hash out specific language. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I just found myself just fascinated by, retuning into everything that's out there on environmental justice and marginalized populations and the impact of our plans and transportation. And I would be happy to start forwarding some of that info your way, and I'm happy to work with others to try to help accomplish this.
We would definitely appreciate all the resources that you have. And as a side note, the Citizens Advisory Committee also has groups or subcommittees that are already working on, or at least going over certain chapters to provide us feedback. And so we appreciate that as well.
Great.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to third or fourth or fifth Terry Porter's comments. I think we should be more explicit about social equity. If anything, just to hold ourselves accountable to do something about it. So I really appreciate those comments, Terry.
Well, I wanted to jump in here too, as far as social equity and resources that are available. And Lou can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we are required at Bloomington Transit to submit regular reports that look at census tracts and income, race, and we're required to submit reports to demonstrate that we are being socially equitable. Was that Title VI, Lou? If I'm wrong, would you correct me? But those things are available, and I don't know how much we do that with highway and street funding, but I know we do it regularly for transit. we're required to, so they're there and they're probably on our webpage. Lou, are you still with me? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Every few years, we have to make a Title VI submission that demonstrates we're in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act.
Are those then available on our webpage?
It's a good question. I think it is, but I'll have to check.
Yeah, and if not, then maybe we should make that available to the policy committee just so they can see what's going on.
Yeah, Kent, that's a really good point. We are going to, in the MTP, have direct links, clickable links within our MTP to all the census data that we are using or to help inform us on certain aspects of our MTP for sure.
Okay, great,
so,
thank you.
So yeah, we will have those references available. But if you have additional resources that you're using, or same with you, Lou, we would absolutely welcome those resources that you have too.
And from the staff perspective, we would have loved to have expanded the environmental justice chapter that we have out there, but a lot of that relies on the data, and all we had was the American Community Survey data, which were what I would call estimates. So we're waiting for the census data to come in, the 2020 census data to come in. So sometime next year, probably about this time next year, we'll have definitive data, not only for census tracts, but also for blocks for environmental justice. And then we can fine tune a lot of things. I mean, I feel hamstrung by the fact that we had to put out the environmental justice chapter that we put out there, but that was the best we had in the way of data and information.
Pat, can you remind me, the environmental justice chapter, it's been a little bit since I've looked at it, or the appendix. What type of information specifically are we tracking through that? And I guess what I was getting at, I had a question related to work the Planning and Transportation Department or other departments may already be doing in the context of looking at mode share in transportation by race and by income. And if we want to be thinking about anti-racist and anti-classist transportation policies that are justice focused, we need to be, I think, pretty in tune with what modes of transportation, marginalized groups are using, and thinking about those. If we have either American Community Survey or census data that can help shed some light on it. I'm not sure how granular that gets, or if you all already track that in some way or could. So yeah, any thoughts there?
I mean, we could track that with the 2020 census data going down to the block level. That's how granular we can get. Mm-hmm. I don't know some of the data on the block level, if there are too few families, too few respondents in a block, that data may not be available just because it would reveal who is there and that. But on a macro sense, yeah, we can go down to the block level. We can correlate that with mode choice, mode share, whatever. Also tie that to income and tie that to ethnicity. Yeah, we can do all of that. But the key here is having availability to the 2020 census data first.
I wonder if it's possible that the township trustees and or Shalom and other agencies might be able to give us a bigger idea of how some of the marginalized in our community are using transportation services.
We could do that as long as we could do it in a scientific manner. A verifiable manner of some type or another. Yes, we could.
What exactly do you mean by scientific manner?
Well, in other words, it's not a generalized comment about, oh yeah, a lot of our constituents or a lot of the people we serve, instead, if they could give us more specificity, say a certain percentage, or a certain geographic location or geographic locations, that's what I'm looking for. Something that we can back up.
Mm-hmm. So something along the lines of interview data that asked for estimates based on their experience would not be appropriate?
Depends on how many interviews there are and whether that's a representative sample of their population. I'm looking for something that we can sink our teeth into, is what I want to say.
Yeah, I think it probably varies by township. I'm pretty sure Perry Township has a bunch of data. I don't know if it's organized in any particular way. It's just something I remember from that Citizens Academy we did, Kate. Wasn't it Perry Township where he's got a big spreadsheet full of data, and I think he was looking for people to analyze it. But I suspect that might be only Perry Township and probably doesn't cover the whole county.
Yeah, my impression is that it varies a lot, and that Dan Combs has a lot of data. And he's been going through it. So progress has been made since we talked to him at that point. But yeah, we should certainly ask him. I guess I would encourage us, to the extent that the department feels comfortable and is allowable, to accept qualitative forms of information to help shape what we include in this policy. I mean, I recognize that anecdotal evidence is not necessarily as valid as statistical evidence, but there are a lot of ways to do qualitative information gathering that increase its validity.
And of course, this is also about values. It's not just about statistics and what percent of people do what. This does call to our, at least in the city's case, our adopted plans, which have a whole set of goals that have gone through a robust community development process, where it's not really, it's not a survey-based instrument, but it's a reflection of our values all the same. And I think, thinking about mobility justice can certainly fit into that kind of heading as well.
I would think that the soup kitchen also may have pretty good data on how their clients arrive and leave. We may be able to get that simply from Lou and the data, at least from transit, but that doesn't really help us with the rest of the population.
And I was able to skim through the environmental justice appendix while we were talking here. Yeah, and I know we've identified environmental justice tracts, but it looks like we don't do much with regard to, unless I was missing something, with regard to the types of, the mode of transportation people use to get around, which I think could or should really inform our priorities.
We would do that, except that the transportation data we have is from the 2010 census, and so it was, we consider it a little long in the tooth, is the term I think you used statistically, and so therefore it had marginal validity in there, because a lot of things have changed in terms of, Bloomington transit ridership from 2010 to current times, VMT, the whole trail and greenway system for Monroe County, and for Bloomington, and the advent of scooters and everything else. Yeah, everything's just changed so dramatically that it was going out on a limb if we would have used the 2010 data. Once we have the new data, the 2020 data, then we can go through a whole analysis process using consultants or whatever next year and correlate that out in terms of the where and the why and the how, and are we reaching social justice, marginalized populations with what we have.
Plus, you got the whole coronavirus thing. BT's lost about 90% of their ridership, so things are very, very different.
Well, and the census folks are saying that in certain tracks right now, they've only got about a 30% compliance because of the students being gone from town. So the 2020 census is going to be a little bit skewed also.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Another thing that I'm hearing too is that places like Centerstone right now are seeing better compliance with their visits, quote unquote, because they're being done virtually. And that means that there's not a lack of transportation at times interfering with them getting to their appointments. And so it might be a good idea to be tapping into some of the behavioral health and just regular doctor's visits to see what's going on, whether or not they're getting better compliance because nobody is relying on different forms of transportation.
That's a good idea. No, okay, good, thank you.
Do you have anything else for this, Pat?
No, this is a great discussion. I mean, what Ryan and I would ask is that you continue working behind the scenes. I mean, just because this is the last meeting until August doesn't mean that you have to quit working. You can still be thinking. We'll take any and all ideas. We as staff can't formulate policy. We need that to come from you, and we need that to come from the constituents that you represent, or the constituencies that you represent too, for that matter. So yeah, anything that you can give us. Look at the holes that are in here. I mean, another policy hole is the whole issue of greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, that's not in there at all. Electric vehicles, that's not in there at all. The environmental justice is a huge hole. Health and equity isn't necessarily addressed as well as it should be. So there's plenty of room for improvement here in the guiding principles. It's just a matter of your collective thoughts and ideas, and we can bring that together. And again, all of that is fluid up until we adopt the document in October. So yeah, don't think anything's cast in stone, please.
Great.
Can I jump in just for a second? When you were talking about electric vehicles, I know that was asked about in the survey, and it was referred to, Blue Indy. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but didn't they completely go out of business? Isn't Blue Indy gone?
Yes, they did. As a matter of
People
fact,
didn't know what they are or were.
Pardon me?
I mean, that is true, but normally people would know what they were.
Yeah.
So that's just an example.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was not off base on that. Thank you.
Oh, you're right.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if we have any data on how many electric charging stations there are here in Monroe County. And without electric charging stations, you're not going to have electric vehicles except for very short trips.
I think we do have that information. I just don't know what the number is at the moment.
Okay.
One of the things that I always wrestled with when I was still working at IU and we were talking about Zipcar and electric vehicles was, how do you deal with the problem that if somebody, if it takes you 4 or 8 hours to recharge a vehicle, if somebody drives that vehicle and then somebody else is supposed to pick it up in 30 minutes and it's completely depleted, how do you deal with that?
Or it's not clean.
It's a problem. It's a big
from the
problem.
previous user.
Pardon me?
Or it's not cleaned off from the previous user based on.
Oh yeah, that's a problem too, but yeah. So there are fines for those things, but when the vehicle's not fueled, you just have to have a lot of vehicles to make it work.
Level 1 charging, and there's different levels of charging infrastructure,
Yeah.
level 1, 2, and 3, and that stuff's kind of coming along and improving. So I think it has to be done carefully. These are limitations, but yeah.
Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the final gap that we have there in the guiding principles are freight. There's really no mention of freight motor carrier freight up until this point in time, and that's kind of a lifeblood to the community in terms of economic trade and overall economic activity. That's it for me. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Thanks, Pat.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to new business. Fiscal year 2020 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program amendments. The first one is DES number 170763, 170764, 170765, 170766, and 170767. Bloomington Transit Grimes Lane Facility Improvements.
Okay. Fine. Yeah, Ryan, can you scroll down to me?
You want
And
me
then
to take that, Pat?
I'll let, yes, if you could, Lou, that would be fantastic because you know what I don't.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lou May. I'm General Manager at Bloomington Transit. Bloomington Transit respectfully submits for your consideration a proposed TIP amendment for 2020. And specifically what we're proposing is to increase project funding for our facility maintenance item in the Transportation Improvement Program. It's currently funded at $50,000 in 2020. And we would like to increase that to $363,250 in 2020. And the reason for the change is to provide sufficient funding to replace the roof on our Grimes Lane operations and maintenance facility. The roof is 23 years old now and is in degraded condition and in need of replacement. And last year we did a facility condition assessment study that was funded by the MPO. And one of the highest recommendations or priorities from that study was to replace the roof on the facility here. So again, we propose to increase the funding for this line item from $50,000 to $363,250. It would be a 2020 project. It would be funded at 80% federal 5307 funding and 20% local match provided by Bloomington Transit. So thank you for your consideration of this, and I'm glad to take any questions that you may have.
Can you, I just had a quick question. What is 5307 funding?
It is the formula funding apportioned to Bloomington based on population and population density for public transportation, urban public transportation.
Thank you. Question from the board.
Now, this is Kent. I'm all in favor.
I believe we will need a motion.
I'll move.
We would need a second.
I'll second.
We also need to ask for public comment.
Desiree, do we have any Facebook Live comments?
I am taking a look. No, you do not.
Thanks for checking.
Okay. And do we have anybody to object to this motion? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next topic is DES number 0902215 Bicentennial Pathway, Phase 1 construction on Old 37 North from Audubon to Robinson for 2.3 miles.
Okay. This is, if you know anything about designation numbers or DES numbers, as NDOT calls them, the 09 means the year that the project was actually programmed. So this was programmed in 2009. The grant award was at that time, and it's been going through a whole environmental review and a number of other evaluations, planning evaluations since that time. It came up 2 months ago. Department of Transportation contacted us, asked us to add the project to our transportation improvement program. We agreed that we would. So what we're looking at here is construction engineering beginning in 2021. This is using transportation enhancement money. These are old transportation enhancement monies under previous acts, and then transportation alternatives program funding, which would transportation enhancement was rolled into TAP funding program. So we're looking at $231,200 in federal funding, match of $57,800. Total amount, oops, I had to move my mouse. Total amount of $289,000. And construction would be in 2024. Construction would consist of well, in between there's right-of-way acquisition, which Monroe County would be doing. I believe they're doing that with 100% county money. Construction 2024, 1.5 million, 384,000 for the local match, total of 1.9 million. That's for construction. Total project is $2.2 million. And then Ryan, if you could scroll down, to the graphic on where that's actually located. We've got a visual here to give you an idea of where it's actually located. Okay. This barely touches the urbanized area boundary. In fact, it's right on the northeastern edge of the urbanized area boundary, and that gives you the length of the project. If you've ever ridden a bicycle on that corridor,
I just lost
you know what
sound.
it's like. I'm sorry?
Are we still on?
Yes. Can you hear?
Hello?
We can hear you.
Anyway, the corridor was awarded for the Bicentennial Pathway Project, and it's called a Phase 1 project. I don't know if there will be a Phase 2 project or not. That'll depend upon federal funding. The program came along in that period of 2008-9. It has not been refunded up to this point in time, perhaps under the new Federal Highway Reauthorization Bill, which will come out next year. There will be additional funding for a program so we can construct a Phase 2 project. And Lisa, you might be able to add more to this than I can.
Yeah, and the reason why this has gone on so long from 2008, basically this was a different trail that was to be built over off State Road 45 to make a connection to Lake Lemon. For environmental reasons, there was no possible way to build that trail. So NDOT worked with us to do a route modification and maybe come in from other direction. I know we are going to have to phase this in because of the cost of the project. So at this point, we're just looking at Old 37 North to just past the fire station by Wisnan, below the hill. There's, I believe, about 52 parcels in there, and it's improving the drainage and shoulder work and markings and everything for pedestrian bicycle traffic. So it won't extend all the way. Like I said, it will be phased in. So
I have a question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Just curious generally about the project. I biked it on Wednesday, and yeah, that'll be great to have some additional shoulder space there. Was a Phase 2 contemplated, or is that purely theoretical? Like on Robinson Road specifically, where this ends at its northern terminus, is that meant to be some sort of enhancements for a bicycle path there as well?
The goal is to go from the city of Bloomington to basically Audubon to Tunnel Road to Lake Lemon.
Okay.
So that is the overall goal for this project. Of course, it'll take years and funding, but we had to begin somewhere just so we wouldn't lose the project with NDOT since it was awarded in 2008.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions from myself?
I move approval.
Motion.
Second.
And we have a second. Do we have any public comment? None on Facebook?
Checking again. No, nothing.
Great. Do we have any objections to the motion? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Communications from committee members, non-agenda items, or topic suggestions for future agendas. Seeing none. Right. So upcoming meetings, as Pat mentioned earlier, the board policy committee does not ever meet in the month of July. So our next meeting will be August 14th at 1:30, and it is still planned on being a virtual meeting. The Technical Advisory Committee meeting is June 24th at 10 a.m. as also a virtual meeting. And Citizens Advisory Committee, June 24th at 6:30 p.m., also a virtual meeting. And if there's nothing else, I'll go move for an adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
And I'm seeing no objections to that. So thanks, everybody.